gentlemen, well, tonight we're going to talk about some stuff that, whether you realize it or not, it's going to affect you. Yep. You might not think so yet, but you're going to find out tonight because we're going to talk about it. Yeah, that's right. We're going to get it in. So y'all get ready, hang tight, and we're going to do this thing tonight.
Door number 2 or door number 3?
Oh, wow. Oh, all right, okay, all right. No, wait, okay. All right, no, wait. Oh, wait, Monty. Door number 1, 3, 2, wait, no, wait, hold on.
Yep. Okay, look, y'all, while we getting this thing kicked off, don't forget to share the live. Don't forget to let others know that we here and we having these very important discussions and talk about these topics, because I'm going to bring one to you tonight that is going to, and you probably may have even heard it on the news today, that the New York state's attorney has decided that she's going to sue the NRA to dissolve the NRA. I see you, Sheila. Thank you for checking in. Val, Tashura, Cynthia, and a Riri, my girl Riri from the H-Town in the building. We appreciate you, baby. Okay, look. So apparently, Letitia James, she's the New York Attorney General, and she's decided after an 8-month-long investigation that she's going to sue to have the National Rifle Association dissolved. Well, let me start by saying, hey, cuz I see you, Martha. Let me start by saying right off the top, because see, we're going to get into some real history lessons on this today. I'm going to show y'all how we ended up where we are with the gun rights and everything, the way they're set about. But one of the things that I have a problem with, in particular with this idea, now I'm not against what they are trying to do in New York where the NRA is concerned. However, there's going to be a lot of residue. There's going to be a lot of fallback. There's going to be a lot of things that are going to take place in either direction, whether this thing goes or doesn't go. And it's not going to be cute. See, this is one of those situations where I'm a firm believer that you have to be careful what you ask for. Now, the NRA has a long history of interesting behaviors. In fact, for those of you who don't know, the NRA was actually founded and established in 1871. Now, let's keep in mind that this is shortly after the end of slavery, during what would be considered the Reconstruction period, and also during the beginning phases of what we know as the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan, okay? Now, it was initially established as a marksman organization. The claim is that they decided that the Northerners who began or who were, coming out of the war, who needed to learn to shoot just as good as the Southerners. So in other words, the guys from the North couldn't shoot as good as the Southerners. So they, this was sort of an organization for hunters and things of that nature. At least that is what they are claiming. That is their claim to fame, if you will. Now, the NRA to date, they have an interesting history. But the problem, my personal problem with the NRA is that they pick and choose who they tend to defend or who they will put in work for. I see you, Phyllis. Thank you for checking in. Now, the current president is Wayne LaPierre, that's his name, who is I think, one of the main targets of this particular lawsuit. Now, keep in mind also that the NRA was initially set up and is to this day considered a non-for-profit organization or a charitable organization, or what we in our community refer to as a 501(c)(3). So Letitia James is looking to remove the classification or remove the status from the NRA in that way. Now, primarily, the NRA gets their money from donations. Ask me how I know. At one time, I was a card-carrying NRA member, and that was when I was ignorant. I was ignorant to what I learned after the fact and realized that they do not have everyone who chooses to exercise their Second Amendment right. They don't have everyone's best interest at heart. Back in 1975, in that general vicinity, is when they began to take on a particular partisan attitude, or they began to move in what outwardly appeared to be a more conservative direction. Now, at that time, there was a guy named Harlan Carter. He was the president of the NRA from 1965 to 1967. And he made a quote. He made a statement that said that the NRA was going to be so strong and so dedicated that no politician in America, mindful of his political career, would want to challenge our legitimate goals. And that is the statement made by the then president, Harlan Carter, between 1965 and 67, when he was the president. Now, I want to point out a lot of stuff. I really hope I don't miss anything, because this is going to be a very educational segment here in regard to gun laws, the way the legislation works, and the way we end up with what we have currently, and how all of this affects what's going on right now. And I'm gonna just let me stop right here and just drop this on you right quick. My personal opinion about this lawsuit: the timing is horrible. One of the main reasons why the timing is horrible is because we are in an election year and we are about to select a new president. Well, another president. Let's not say new, because we'll be jumping the gun if we automatically assume that our current commander-in-chief will not be at the head anymore. We cannot make that assumption, and particularly because of this particular lawsuit. Here's why. We already are looking at a situation where he wants more debates, and he wants the debates moved forward because he's afraid that people are going to start voting right away. And if people begin to vote immediately, he knows that he stands very little chance of being reelected. However, with a move, and let me just say this, Joe Biden is not anybody's favorite candidate, and I'm sure most of you know that. Joe Biden is not that dude, so to speak. He just happens to be who is up against who everyone else wants to get rid of. Most people at this point would vote for a ham sandwich. So Joe Biden could effectively refer to himself as ham sandwich from now on. I haven't heard an agenda from him or anything that is going to resemble something that's going to benefit the country moving forward. And I'm not saying that I am against him. I'm just not for him. I'm not against him. But I will vote for him as in opposition to what our other opportunities are. Now, I say that to say this, and let me bring this up right quick. Y'all's man Kanye. I'm gonna get back to that. Okay, so the problem with the timing on this lawsuit is this. During the Biden Obama tenure, let's remember that the entire time, the mantra for those 8 years was that they were going to take everyone's weapons away. With a move like this particular NRA lawsuit right here during an election time, it's going to make it look like now Biden and Democrats and people of that are along that mindset are going to attempt that very thing. Let's keep in mind that the National Rifle Association is the only thing that stands between the United States citizens' Second Amendment rights and those who would find their way to remove the ability for all of us and any of us to have firearms. The same process took place in Canada and other countries where at one time they were allowed legally to have firearms, and that was removed by law from those people, and they now do not have the right or benefit of self-defense in that way. Now let's keep in mind, criminals will always have guns. And if you think that they're not, you're delusional. So of course it's better when people who have or exercise their rights as citizens, tax-paying, honest, upstanding individuals have the right to carry their guns and use them as self-defense or whatever else, hunt, whatever they choose to do, sports, should have that right. Now, with this lawsuit right now, I think about 2 weeks ago, I thought to myself, I said, man, we are going to get a new president. This is Joe Biden's election to lose. He didn't have to do anything except stand there and wait. But now I'm starting to get a little more apprehensive about that attitude. And here's why. Joe Biden has been making some real inflammatory statements lately. He's been cracking out a turn. And he needs to be very, very careful. Number one. Number two, while cracking out a turn, he is now about to select his new running mate, which we are pretty confident will be one of a couple of women that are black. Now, it's not that everybody knows that's what's coming, so I don't think anybody's going to be surprised by that. However, there are going to be those who are, for example, against Kamala Harris, and because of her previous way of doing things and some of the laws that she helped to enact in her state and things like that. So there's going to be that. Then you have the fact that this lawsuit is coming down where the NRA is concerned. You are about to witness, if we're not very, very careful, you're about to witness a turn in the tide of disapproval for Donald Trump. Because the minute people get a whiff of belief for 1 second that they're going to lose their right to bear arms, you can mark my words, the vote is going to go in a different direction. Now, the reason for the lawsuit by Letitia James is because Wayne LaPierre, who is the head of the NRA currently, and other people in the upper echelons of the organization have apparently been using millions of dollars for personal use. They've been, skimming off the top, doing their thing. Slush fund, you know what I'm saying? The lawsuit alleges that the gun rights advocacy group engaged in years of illegal self-dealings that funded the lavish lifestyles for the organization's leadership. And that was a statement, that's what Letitia James is saying, and here's my problem. Even with that, that's cool. You want to sue to dissolve them, but there are no criminal charges being levied either. How do you, as an attorney general, well, I know what she's trying to do, because as a 501(c), as a charitable organization, they don't have the same rights as a profitable company. They are basically governed by the government, by the federal government, by the state governments. So they do have that option to press to have them dissolved, much like they did Donald Trump's charitable organization, who they were also skimming off the top from, who they also are under investigation for currently moving forward with the hush money from his from his campaign back when he first took office in 2016, when he had to quiet down the porn star. But in a statement by Carolyn Meadows of the NRA, she's the NRA president right now, and I quote, "This is a senseless, premeditated attack on our organization and the Second Amendment freedoms it fights to defend. This has been a power grab by a political opportunist, a desperate move that is part of a rampant political vendetta. Our members won't be intimidated or bullied in their defense of political and constitutional freedom." Now, the NRA has 20 days to respond to this lawsuit. But again, no criminal charges are involved. So let's be mindful that this could easily turn the tide of this election. All it's going to take is a few people that feel like they're about to lose their rights, along with this other little magic bullet named Kanye. His name ain't West no more. He done had his pants snatched. Kanye Kardashian. So Kanye Kardashian is officially going to be running for the office of president. And he knows, as well as all of the rest of us, that he's not going to win. What he's hoping to do, him and his massa over there, is siphon off some of the votes so that 44 plus 1 actually has a fighting chance to win back this office. All I can say to that is that I hope that anyone who has a heart, who has blood pumping through their veins and is human, understands what that means and does what is necessary in order to make America truly great again. And then the question becomes, who was it great for in the first place, right? But I will say this. I hollered at my man the other day, and he made a statement. So this was the statement. He told me Kanye West don't care about black people. Y'all heard it here first. Your man George Bush say Kanye West don't care about black people. Touche, George. Touche, touche. All right, so anyway, my personal experience, Dennis McCullum, the Black Gun Association, you actually have a couple, but the one that's been getting the most headlines lately is the NFAC. They are the ones making all the noise because they are currently parading armed. Now, I want to show y'all something. There's a couple of things. Now, as it pertains to gun law right now today, here's something a lot of people do not know. California was one of the first states to implement what we know as gun control laws back in the late 60s. And like the saying goes, so goes California, so goes the rest of the country. So in other words, when California does stuff, they're usually first to do it. When they do stuff, it tends to bleed over and trickle down into the rest of the country. Now, back in 1967, they created a law. It was called the Mulford Act, okay? And it repealed a law which allowed the public carrying of loaded firearms. Now, it was named after a Republican assemblyman, Don Mulford. It was signed into law by the then governor, Ronald Reagan. Aha. Now, here's what you need to know about that. And it's time for my shameless plug, because I wrote about this in the Black Factor. Get your copy. We got them on deck. We talked about in here where Ronald Reagan, in his, or the residents of California, in their short-sighted view of the world, they decided that they created that bill, the Mulford Act, which was in response to guess who? The Black Panther Party. They put that bill together because these black men were lawfully conducting armed patrols of their Oakland neighborhoods. They later put a label on it, much like they do with when they came up with black on black crime, and they come up with all these other slogans for us to bite on to. They're real good about that. They labeled this cop watching. Not that they were patrolling their own neighborhoods to keep their own families safe and their people safe. They named it cop watching. We know who created that term. So, of course, then it got national attention about the, Black Panthers, black men walking around armed, marching in Now, they did march on the state capitol. That sound familiar? We just had a group of militiamen, armed individuals, march on the state capitol right here in these United States, in Michigan. And nobody was offended. Or should I say, nobody who looks like them. And they did it, and nobody crafted any new laws. None, the NRA was silent, like they always are about some of these things, about certain things, because they do have a double standard. We're going to get into that. But let's keep in mind that right now we have armed individuals who choose to go to state houses armed with assault rifles because they are asked to wear a mask. Not because their lives are in jeopardy, not because of police brutality, not because they're being disenfranchised or unfairly treated or any of those things, not because their skin has been criminalized, not because their children are being beaten in the street, but because they had to wear a mask. But no legislation has come forward because of that particular event. Imagine that. So, when they put this bill on the table, it basically took away the right for people to carry loaded firearms in California. The law banned the carrying of loaded weapons in public. Now, both Republicans and Democrats in California supported the increased gun control, as did the National Rifle Association. Who, of course, was a major supporter of the act. Now, I want y'all to think about that. It's 1967. The National Rifle Association backed the state of California's law about carrying loaded weapons in public. Not because anyone had done anything, but because black men began to understand and implement the laws provided to them in the Constitution. They couldn't have that. Couldn't have that. You cannot have armed black men doing what armed white men have been doing to date. It's a double standard, right? Okay. Now, I don't want, but this is my personal view. The NRA, I ain't gonna say they racist. I'm gonna just say they have some racist behaviors. Now, one of the things that made me mad, and this is when I started realizing they didn't have my best interest at heart, which is where and again, my ignorance, I didn't know any better when I joined the NRA, which I am no longer a member of and would not give them the sweat off the bottom of my feet. I remember when Barack Obama was in office, and I would get phone calls, and this was long after I had left the organization. They would call to solicit donations because, again, this is how the NRA operates. Now, I want y'all to understand the depth of what these donations mean. The donations that the NRA receive, and there are many, are what basically they use to lobby these politicians and get these people in order and in line to do as they please. Now, I want to go back to the quote that I made to you earlier. Now, and also, they claim they weren't politically involved until the mid-'70s, which is not true, because that's why they were in heavy support of the California bill to ban the guns. But the same guy, Harlan Carter, right? Now let's remember, same time they banned guns for black folks, or should I say in California because of black folks, this guy was the president of the NRA, Harlan Carter. Again, he said, they're going to be so strong and so dedicated that no politician in America, mindful of his political career, would want to challenge our legitimate goals. So let's fast forward to today. Right now, we live under gun laws that have their challenges, create problems for us, and the funding that they receive, I need you to understand, are what pay for plenty of campaigns. A lot of these politicians do not go against the NRA. Dennis McCullum, how does the government make a law against blacks that isn't against whites for the same offense? Dennis, I'm glad you asked that question. And here's the funny part about that. Part of the reason why the NRA had to take the stand that it did is because the beginning legislation to ban guns, because of the visual of black people running around armed in their own neighborhoods policing, was because there's some level of it appeared or assumed anarchy, if you will. In other words, the police couldn't just run up in there and do what they wanted to our people, and we were policing our own communities. See, the Black Panther Party was never this group of vigilantes or weirdos that they tried to make them out to be. You know, we always buy into everybody else's narrative. It was a community organization, much like, a lot of people don't know this, the Vice Lords in Chicago started out as a community organization with political aspirations. They were later, they got the label hung around their neck as a gang, and then things just kind of went south. The thing is this, they did make these laws that would affect black people, but what they forgot, and this is why I always refer to it as being very short-sighted, what they forgot was that these same laws would apply to them equally. And this is why the NRA to date now begins to move in the directions that it does, because they know that when these laws are made and enacted and put into place, it affects them equally. So here's what happens. Now, this is where you got to pay real close attention. When law enforcement, for example, goes out and murders an unarmed black person, the NRA is silent. They're quiet. They're quiet because they know the right from the wrong, but it is sort of like the elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about and nobody wants to deal with. So rather than stand up and jump up and down about this black man getting killed, they don't say anything. So that when white people are walking around armed and doing as they please, they don't have anything to fall back on and say, well, what about this? Nah, we didn't say nothing about that. We don't have nothing to do with that. See, you got to be careful, again, what you ask for. You have to be careful what you play into. And they have become smart enough over the last several decades to know when to speak and what to speak about and how to mask their comments in ways that continue to benefit them, and they can then separate themselves from situations. And like mainstream public, for example, you'll hear people say things like, oh, he was on drugs. Oh, he did this and he did that. That's the reason why they go and they find things so that they can say that what they did was indefensible. Up until this year, let's keep in mind that we have witnessed multiple murders of individuals that had no business being killed, but the minute they are killed, they always try and find a reason to justify it by law enforcement, which we all know is a joke. Good evening, Pamela. Thank you for checking in. I see you. Don Dot What, my man in the building. So this is what you have to, these are the double standards and the double-edged swords. Now, let's look at it this way. Let's talk about Philando Castile, right? If you don't know who Philando Castile is, I want you to look the story up, because like I always tell you all, don't believe me, do your own homework, but I'm going to tell you, Philando Castile was a young black man who lived in Minneapolis. He was a legal card-carrying firearm owner. He was exercising his Second Amendment right. He had the right to concealed carry. He was in a car riding with his girlfriend. His girlfriend was pulled over supposedly for a broken taillight or some nonsense like that. Their daughter was in the back seat. The police officer nervously pulled up to the car on the passenger side, and I believe he was somehow afraid. Well, he claims he was afraid. The video looks like he was afraid. It's been a while since I watched the video, but he stood there and he asked him, did he have a firearm? And Philando Castile told him yes. Now, understand this, by law, in many states, most states, if you are a concealed carrier, a person with concealed carry, when an officer approaches you, you do have a duty in many states to notify that officer that you are carrying a firearm. And you should, if asked, present to them your concealed carry identification. In this particular case, as Philando Castile went to reach for his identification, he was then shot by this cop who said that he feared for his life. He was murdered right in front of his girlfriend and child, who was in the back seat, by a scared cop. Now let's ask ourselves, what about this situation? And it was all on video because she videotaped the whole thing while this was happening. What makes an officer that nervous when he pulls up to the side of a car that he claims he pulled over for a taillight? What are you so afraid of? You're so afraid that you had to murder someone. I'm not going to get into the whole story. Here's my problem. As a concealed carry, a person with the right to conceal carry, which is one of the main things that the NRA advocates for in regard to the Second Amendment, why did they not immediately stand up and say, hey, y'all violated that man's Second Amendment right. You violated his constitutional right to bear arms. They didn't say a word. They later came up with some other rigmarole that allowed them to escape comment. I know why they didn't comment, because like the legislation that they were so supportive of in California in 1967, they still take the same posture in that that's a black man with a gun. Legal or illegal, doesn't matter. That's a black man with a gun, and we don't care about that. The thing that stands out the most to me is their silence in these cases. When Trayvon Martin was murdered by George Zimmerman, the NRA, silent. When Jordan Davis, an unarmed black teenager, was gunned down, the NRA was silent. You know, that was the case in Florida with the white guy claiming he's playing their music too loud. When Michael Brown, unarmed teenager, gunned down by a cop in Ferguson, NRA, silent. Now, whenever something bad happens in the white community, or they're afraid that they're going to, or someone is going to take their weapons, the NRA says, arm yourselves, get your guns. But now ask yourself this. When Trayvon Martin, just as an example, was murdered by George Zimmerman, you didn't hear the NRA calling for young black men, or anyone for that matter, to arm themselves. You don't hear them whenever black unarmed individuals in the street are gunned down. You don't hear them saying, go buy more guns, arm yourselves. See, these are the double standards. Here's an example. The NRA called the police and federal officials, the federal agents, all of them who went to David Koresh's compound. Y'all remember David Koresh? That was the Waco incident. They called the police and the authorities jackbooted thugs. See, that was okay. You had something to say about them then, but we talking about a bunch of white folks. See, double standard. Now, according to the NRA, the only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun, and this is their mantra, the only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. So, why isn't the NRA standing up for black people? The only conclusion is that the NRA believes, my personal opinion, that black men aren't and can never be good. So, they don't need to be supported, which is the reason why we have the NFAC and other organizations like it that are growing. They're growing because, like Black Wall Street and other periods throughout history of the United States, we don't need them. We never have needed them. Every time we have been self-sufficient, because having been shut out of everything and told that we can't participate in things because of it being a black-white thing, white water fountains, black bathrooms, white bathrooms, we've been shut out throughout the history of this country. And the minute we pick up and do our own thing, suddenly there's a problem. You can't have that. We got to tear that down. Black Wall Street. You can't have that. We got to tear that down. Okay? That's just one example. In fact, one day on the show, I'm going to take the time out and I'm going to go back and I'm going to give an entire list of riots and destruction by those who claim that we're lazy and we don't do this or we don't want to do that, and all of the times that we have began to build a legacy, began to build generational wealth, and it was torn down by those who couldn't stand to see that happening. See, this is the situation. So like those times, we are again building, but this time we're building again in our own interest, because our best interests are not being met through that organization. So there are other organizations that are growing and popping up. And don't get it twisted. In fact, I had a friend of mine one day ask me, this was not too long ago, he said, what do you think about the fact that white folks go to these gun shows and they buy all these guns and they stockpile weapons and they stockpile ammunition. What do you think about that versus where we are? Now, the claim was that black people buy cars and rims and gym shoes. But let me assure you, and this is what I told him, that is an unfortunate misconception, number one, mainly because I hate the fact that we buy into so many stereotypes, and we do it constantly. Stereotypes that are created by those who would see us dehumanized. And unfortunately, many of us buy into it. Here's the fact. Black folks are equally as well armed and well trained. The difference between them and us, I'm gonna give y'all a little secret here. This is a secret. The difference between them and us is that we don't walk around every day flashing weapons and brandishing weapons and going to Capitol buildings in modern times to prove something. We don't stand in front of our homes pointing ARs at people walking by like some people. We don't stand up and make our presence felt just because we want to prove something or we want to let the world know we're tough. See, that's what they do. Whatever goes down, trust and believe, there are plenty of people ready, willing, and able, and locked and loaded. Now, I tell anyone, you want gun laws and gun legislation that you think is going to save the world? Like, for example, people talk about the guns in Chicago. Let me tell y'all something about that. Some of the guns that's in Chicago, you can't tell me that these people went and bought none of this. They're coming from somewhere. Now, I've got friends that have straight up told me that they have found cases of weapons and ammunition in an alley. They have found, they know exactly, seemingly, they managed to always know exactly which rail car to hit at the rail yard to get the guns. All them rail cars, and you always seem to know which one. Imagine that. Listen, you can't tell me it ain't foul play going on. You can't. You can't tell me that some of those weapons, very sophisticated weapons, they don't just fall from the sky. There's something way more sinister afoot. Anyway, understand that you currently have, as well, a president who loves the NRA. And in case y'all forgot, I remember when Barack Obama was running for office, and what was that Clint Eastwood got up there in front of the NRA. Y'all do know, and this is one thing you need to be real clear about. The NRA provides a report card for politicians. If you are an A politician, that means that you're on board with them and everything that they're doing, and they will help to fund your campaign and get you the people that you need in front of them and get everything. They'll help get you elected. If they don't like you and they give you an F or anything like that, understand that they're going to work against you. Drew Thomas, I like your comment. I think that more black folks should join the NRA. On the one hand, I would agree, only because I know what that would do to them. I know what that would cause. But here's the problem with that. If they join the NRA, you then help to fund your own demise. You help to put money into the pockets of those who will see you destroyed. And I don't think that's a good idea. Dennis McCullum is absolutely right. Join the NFAC. If you want to join an organization that is going to have your best interest at heart in regard to gun legislation, and they are growing, and the strength and power will be forthcoming from them. And there's nothing nobody can do about it unless they change the laws for everybody. It's as simple as that. This is not the 50s and 40s or no other time in history when black people were not considered equal. You can say whatever you want, but our blood and sweat and tears is in the soil of this country, and we will continue to reap the benefits of our hard work. Don't get that twisted. Now, but on that same note, Drew Thomas, let me say this. the more black people who arm themselves, the more black people who exercise their Second Amendment right, and the more black people who choose to move in those directions, the quicker laws will be changed. Either that or we're sitting on a powder keg. I want y'all to understand what a powder keg we are sitting on currently in regard to this lawsuit by New York to the NRA. I think the timing is awfully bad. I think that it is not going to end well. I think that they're going to have a tough road to hoe in that particular case. Because once again, you need to understand that these are the people who finance these politicians. That money comes out of the pockets of their supporters and their constituents. They're fund campaigns that do not have the interest of black people at heart. So Drew, while I do appreciate that you have what would be a valid point, but the problem is we don't want to help to build that war chest anymore. More black people are armed now than ever. We just don't show off. But now, here's the thing. While I agree that I think that the timing on this particular lawsuit is bad. Let me stop here. Drew Thomas, I also helps open up to protect us as a people from these loose cannons out there. Armed folks are less likely to become victims. Oh, I agree. Listen, Drew, I'm with you 100%. I've believed in it all my life. I always have. All my children have learned under me from very young the use, handling, safety of firearms. Better to have them and not need them than to need them and not have them. And that is a problem that some of us are gonna definitely suffer from. But now, while I think that the timing is bad on this particular lawsuit, only because, again, we're in an election year and you are dealing with a person in this office who, of course, claims that he's done more for black people than anyone in history except maybe Abraham Lincoln, which proves he knows nothing about history or himself for that matter. Anyway, I want y'all to think about this, though. I'm not against what she's doing, and I know that it could possibly work. I'm going to let you all in on a little known history fact. I don't know how many of y'all know this. I don't know how many of you don't. But in 1981, and I'm going to show you the power of a good lawsuit. In 1981, a man was lynched, if you will, in Alabama. His name was Michael Donald. Michael Donald, that was his name. His mother name was Beulah May. Now, he was murdered on March 21st of 1981. And the thing was, the KKK in Alabama were very upset that another case was not going the way that they wanted it to go, so they felt like they wanted to go out and kill a black man. So they found 19-year-old Michael Donald and murdered him and hung his body from a tree. Now, this is 1981. Making a long story short, his mother pursued justice. And she did so, of course, with a lot of opposition, especially being in Alabama. Well, eventually the feds did pick up the case, and a couple of Klansmen ended up being arrested. Now, long story short, the two gentlemen, I use that term very loosely, they were arrested and tried. One of them received life in prison. The other one received the death penalty. And that was the first time since 1913 that a white man had been given a death sentence for killing a black man in Alabama. Now, Beulah May held these people accountable. And it was also said that they were acting basically at the behest of the KKK there in Alabama in killing her son. So ultimately, what ended up happening was, now I want you to understand that this Klan, it's the same Klan that terrorized black people in Alabama for over 100 years. Now, this is the same group who bombed the 16th Street Church in Birmingham. That was in 63. Along with other incidents of that nature, right? Well, here's what happened. Beulah McDonald sued the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan of America. She sued them. And that was in 1987. They were awarded, her family was awarded $7 million. Well, guess what? The Klan didn't have it. Now, there was an all-white jury who basically rendered this verdict. $7 million for the death of her son. And they couldn't afford it. So, what they ended up doing, they had to turn over the deed to their building. They had a national headquarters type thing there in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. It was only worth $225,000. And the members, all of the members, had to pay. They had their checks garnished and a bunch of other stuff. They had to give up property and a whole bunch of more stuff to satisfy this $7 million debt. So this one little old white black woman sued the KKK and basically bankrupted them. Now I said that to say in an optimistic point that it is possible to get the justice that could become necessary from that organization. However, we're not talking about murder, but we are talking about what looks like some fraudulent behavior as well as some tax evading things. So we're going to see what happens. Are 501(c)(3)s allowed to donate to political organizations? Dennis, I am not sure about that. I'm not versed in the corporation law or what they can and cannot do. I will look into that though. But I said all of that to say that we are in a very odd time, and I know I ain't got to tell none of y'all that. 2020 been a monster, man. It's been something else. But I want y'all to be mindful, pay attention, pay very close attention to what's happening right now. Do not let your emotions get the best of you in the way you view the information that's going to be coming forward. There's a lot of things that are going to be happening, and I'll tell y'all what, I'm as optimistic as I am about this upcoming election. I'm starting to see some ripples in the water that I don't like. Phyllis Harris says, by the way, Brian, there has been some movement or at least revisited by the media in the Long case. Very good. Thank you for that information, Phyllis Harris. That is an absolute good thing to hear, and I hope that that man finally receives justice after 44 years. And for those of you who are not familiar, we did a story here last week about a gentleman by the name of Ronnie Long in Concord, North Carolina, who has been held against his will because he was basically done like many black men in the justice system and kidnapped rather than prosecuted fairly. He was given a very unfair trial and is now and has served 44 long years in penitentiary and should be released immediately based on the merits of the case. I hope that that happens. So, y'all's man, Kanye Kardashian, I'm really trying to figure out what in the whole hell is going on in the Kardashian household, because every man that seems to go through there look like his cheese gonna slide off the cracker. I don't understand what's going on over there, because this cat is he done gone off the ranch. I don't know what that's about, but he's gonna be running for office, y'all. Like I said, do not let your emotions get the best of you. Keep your mind open. Watch what's happening. Pay attention. And like my man Joe Madison says on his show on XM, Urban View, watch this thing with your third eye. Don't use both your eyes. Use all three of your eyes, because there's a lot happening, and you must be paying attention in order to keep your mind straight, because there's a lot of muddying of the water. I actually engaged with somebody yesterday who I believe was a Russian troll or something, who wanted me to. He had a whole list of so-called accomplishments that Donald Trump made that basically were as much a propaganda as anything else I've seen. It's insane what's happening. So, the billionaire, Donald Trump, who hides his taxes, the genius who hides his college grades, the businessman who bankrupted 3 casinos and lost over $1 billion in 10 years, the playboy who pays for sex, the virologist who knows more than Dr. Fauci, the leader of the free world who said he fell in love with North Korea's Kim Jong-un, the Christian who doesn't go to church, the president who committed treason by turning a blind eye to Russian bounties on our soldiers, the unifier who calls white supremacists fine people, the philanthropist who defrauds charity, the patriot who dodged the draft 5 times, Mr. Bone Spurs, the innocent man who refuses to testify, the president who takes no responsibility, the tough, strong man who wears makeup and hairspray, the deal maker who has yet to close a deal. I'm still waiting on Mexico to pay for this wall that we still don't have. He lied and said we do, but we don't. The wall he's talking about is the refurbishment of the stuff that was already there. And trust me, I've seen it long before he ever became president. This is the president of the United States who claims he's making America great again. I want y'all to know, I want you to understand this. That man is preparing to stay in office by any means necessary. You hear what I said? If y'all think he's just going to get up and walk out of office after this election, I'm going to just go out on a limb and I'm going to say that you're sadly mistaken. There's going to be more to that than meets the eye. This could be a very disastrous time for this country. I'm going to just tell y'all, what we have known as the status quo or the integrity of the office of the presidency, the respect that it once had, the reverence that it was once due, has been greatly diminished and has been sullied by someone who cares nothing for anyone other than himself. It's a dangerous game he plays. It is unfortunate that he has such a scorched earth mentality. In other words, if he doesn't get what he wants, nobody is going to get anything. And that is a tough game to play. We'll see. Hey, Jackie Russell, I see you. Thank you for checking in. I'm going to just say, and then we're still in the middle of this COVID thing. And this is just going to turn into a real shitstorm. Y'all got to be mindful of what's happening. Phyllis Harris. He also played an instrumental part in making Whirlpool Appliance a success. Yes, I heard that nonsense. And he tried to make it seem as though he brought companies back to America, which he didn't do. He's yet to do. He can't do. He doesn't have that ability. He is not a dictator. You cannot tell people in free enterprise what to do and where to operate their businesses. And he talked about putting a tariff on some products coming out of China and other places. The problem is that when you apply tariffs, you need to understand that they go both ways. So rather than supposedly save us money or equal the playing field, he's going to cost us more money. Y'all, we got to be careful. He said he's done more for black people than anyone except Abraham Lincoln. Kanye Kardashian, under his tutelage, is about to try and siphon off the vote and make it an even crazier playing field by placing himself into the running. Should be very interesting. Let's see. Dennis says, if you always play double or nothing, you will eventually win. Just like he says, the virus will go away soon. It will one day come true. Yes, Dennis, I agree. The old saying to that is, a broken clock is right at least twice a day. The inevitability of it. And this is one of those inevitable scenarios where he can make a statement like that and say, oh yeah, it's going to go away. He reminded me of daggone it, what's the boy name in Friday? Like, yeah, I know he told me to be quiet, but when he leave, I'll be talking again. See what I'm saying? Same thing, no different. I don't know, y'all. Well, I'm going to leave you with that. There's a million other things that I want to say, a million other things that I could say, a million other things that I always think about after I turn off this microphone and these cameras and these lights. And I try not to beat a dead horse, but I'm going to need everybody. If you can hear me, I need you to understand how important voting is. Do not allow the attempts being made to say that mail-in voting is going to cause all of this fraud. See, this cat knows he's about to lose. This is why he's shoring up the walls so that when he does lose, he's going to blame mail-in voting as the reason why. It was all a fraud. Nobody, they didn't do it. Now, here's the problem. You're suing Nevada, but you're cool with Florida. You can't have it both ways. If they can mail in vote from Florida, they can mail in vote from Nevada. But I'm just crazy. I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know what a whole lot of people are talking about. I really don't. It just baffles me to watch the nonsense play out day in and day out on our news and wonder, what are we coming to? If something, I promise y'all, if we don't get this out of the way by in November, if we don't start to straighten this stuff out, it's just not going to be cute, y'all. It's not going to go well, and we're going to have a lot of problems. I was worried when he got elected the first time. If he gets elected the second time, baby, whew, baby, look, I don't even, I'm scared to even think about the possibilities. But if y'all think this thing can't get turned back around against black people, man, y'all don't know your history. You better go back. Right after slavery, black folks took ran for offices and won, opened good businesses, did a whole bunch of stuff. Now, who would have thought we could have went from being a slave to being a legislator? It happened. But then, right behind that, they figured out ways to disenfranchise and dehumanize and demoralize black people all over again. If you think that can't happen again, You don't know your history. You better figure it out. Let's see. Jackie Russell, I agree. The holidays are going to close many companies. Many companies are closing now. I've seen several places that are gone and will not be back. Phyllis says he is attempting to slow down the Postal Service. Yes, and one of his people, I don't remember this guy's name, but it's one of his people he appointed as Postmaster General who is actually ahead of that thing. And I think they're going to try and scuttle the Postal Service in favor of Donald Trump, which should also go against should be considered high crimes and misdemeanors, and they should all be locked up for treason. Let's see. Who controls the absentee ballots of deceased? Going to be some mess. Jackie Russell, I am assuming that you mean if they've died after they voted. I'm assuming that. But there is no necessarily any control other than the election commissions and boards statewide of any ballots. And the misconception or the propaganda that dead people were voting, that's part of the whole, that goes all the way back to Reagan and them. They started planting those seeds of BS way back then. Donald Trump is doing nothing more than attempting to use every single trick in the book to try and make sure that if he loses, or should I say when he loses, that he will have some groups of people, some of his Trumpanzees, as I refer to them, who will believe anything he says and will do anything that he says, and they're going to just say that he lost because they believe in their mind and in their heart that everyone else loves them as much as they do, loves him as much as they do. And unfortunately, they are in the minority. The only thing that you need to understand about the group of people who follow Trump is that there are not really that many of them. It's just that they are loud and they are outspoken. And that combination makes people look bigger than they are. It makes groups look bigger than they are. They're really loud, but they don't have any effect. It's kind of like a barking dog. And if you stop to throw rocks at every barking dog, you'll never get where you're going. So you just got to kind of ignore them. All mail is now hand sorted instead of machine sorted. Is that right, Dennis? I'm gonna have to talk to some of my post office people. When you say hand sorted, you mean they're not using the machines to actually do the sorting of the mail anymore? I wonder what that's about. Yes, Dennis, you're absolutely right. He does give them a voice. He allows for people who are otherwise unheard in their racism, hatred, and rhetoric to have a voice. And it's the first time that they've had such a voice since probably the 60s. And they are very bold these days. But the only difference is, and many of them have had to find this out the hard way, is that we are not in the 60s and our attitudes are not what they were in the 60s. And yes, you will get hit square in the mouth for cracking out a turn. Yep, that's the truth. We're not standing still for that. I've seen people wear the T-shirts that say, "I am not my ancestors." For that reason, I don't necessarily agree with the verbiage of that particular shirt, but I understand. Yeah, things are very different these days. Charlotte Phillips says, I guess it's those same dead folks that receive the millions in stimulus payments. Yes, exactly. Oh, and speaking of that, let me let me bring this to y'all's attention right quick. So a lot of people have been receiving or had received these small business loans over the last month or so, or last couple of months. And there is and I said this before, I'm going to say it again. There are a lot of people who received money from these loans who do not have businesses. Now, there's a guy in Houston whose ass is in a lot of hot water at this very moment for that thing. So apparently he received $1.6 million of this business loan, right? So he went out and bought a Lamborghini, of all things. Let me read this to you right quick. A Texas man this week became the second person in less than 2 weeks to be accused by federal prosecutors of using COVID-19 relief money to buy a Lamborghini. The man, Lee Price III, 29, of Houston, received more than $1.6 million under a federal paycheck protection program after he submitted 5 applications in May and June with fraudulent information to numerous banks claiming to employ dozens of people. Prosecutors in Houston said on Tuesday. In response to 2 of those applications, a pair of banks that officials did not identify deposited money into bank accounts controlled by Mr. Price, according to a criminal complaint filed in the Southern District of Texas. With that money, Mr. Price went on a lavish spending spree, according to the complaint. On June 26, the day Mr. Price received $937,500 in response to one request, he purchased a $14,000 Rolex watch. The next day, he bought a 2019 Lamborghini for $223,337.60. Now, let me tell y'all something. If you think he gonna be the last one that they investigate and bring down, you are so sadly mistaken. Whole lot of folks gonna go down behind this. Oh yeah, it's a damn near a setup. Now, if you was dumb enough to lie on federal papers, because that is, you lying, they got him with wire fraud, mail fraud, and 2 or 3 other charges. Can't do it. You better have a business. You better be legit. And then, even if you legit, you better be able to account for that paper. These people is not playing with you out here. Oh yeah, he's black, Dennis. Yes, he is. Please believe it. But while we laughing at him on this grander scale, I'm gonna need y'all to understand that the IRS and people who do these things will be checking on a forensic level these other businesses and companies. I'm gonna put it this way. I've seen people who I really don't believe that have businesses get money. And I know people who have businesses who were denied. So I don't know how this thing gonna play out, but I'm just saying. Now, before I go, let me also put y'all up on one more game, one more scheme right quick. I need to put y'all up on this while it's on my mind. I don't want to forget this. If someone calls your house, calls your phone, and says that you are, or they're contact tracing and you've been exposed to someone with COVID-19 and they need your personal information, it's probably a scam. You will know it's a scam, especially when they ask you for your credit card information so that they can send you a COVID-19 test in the mail. It's not how this works. So all I'm saying is be mindful of the okie doke. The okie doke is out here. Scammers are out here. They're doing everything. Believe anytime there's a catastrophe, a disaster, anytime there is any kind of a pandemic, any type of scenario where the general public is in a state of disarray, the scam artists come out and they go to work. So please believe that these people are out here and they're going to play on anything that they can. So do not, again, look, y'all, let me tell you like this. I'm gonna tell y'all something really funny. Some of y'all gonna laugh at me and some of y'all gonna say I was crazy and cruel, but check this out. I always taught my children never to panic and never to let their emotions get the best of them, right? So when my children were infants, all of them, and I discovered this by accident. My oldest daughter, one day, she was laying on the bed, and I didn't think too much about it, and I dropped a book on the bed, and it startled her. And she jumped, and she said, ah, she screamed, and I was like, oh my God. So I calmed her down. But then, another time, I did it again. It was something very similar. It wasn't a book. But I dropped something and she startled and she screamed and I calmed her down. But then I said, is she gonna do that every time I do something? So the next time I walked up and I slapped the bed and it scared her and she jumped. So I waited about 20 minutes and I did it again. Only this time she didn't jump quite as much. So about 20 minutes later, I did it again and she didn't jump at all. I said that to say this. One of the rules in my house has always been that always take that extra second, that extra time and think. Always take that extra couple of minutes in order that you make a good decision. Don't let other people rush you, scare you, or push you. For whatever reason, call me crazy because kids don't come with an instruction book. We're going to do a whole show on that, matter of fact. It's coming up. But call me crazy, but to this day, you cannot startle my children. You cannot shake them. They might be scared. They might be nervous, but you ain't going to know it. I say that to speak to the rest of you in a way as to say, condition yourself to be mindful that sometimes everything is not the way that it appears. That sometimes you have to stop and think. You got to read between the lines. I ain't saying go conspiracy theory crazy on it. I'm just saying you got to sometimes think, take a little bit longer, pay attention. Everything is not startle worthy. And even though you may feel some kind of way, see, this is called the poker face. Even though you may feel some kind of way, you ain't got to show the world how you feel. Even though you might be thinking something, the world doesn't need to know. Sometimes silence is the best answer. There are people who think that they have to respond to everything someone says to or about them. It's not necessary. When we learn to govern ourselves better, we make it easier to control our environment. And we take away the control that others have over us. Because think about this. Every time somebody runs up on you and says something that you know, they're looking for a certain reaction. Why give it to them? Don't always give people what they expect. But you have to be in control of yourself to understand that. Too many people are not. Far too many people are not in control of their own emotions or their own abilities to get through something. You just got to sometimes take the hit. Okay? You don't need to smile. You don't need to cry. Deal with it when it's time. Everything doesn't require an immediate, a loud, or direct response. Not saying not to, because I deal with a lot of stuff head on. But sometimes you just got to take your time and deal with it. So when it comes to these scammers, y'all, be paying attention, be watching out. There's a lot of stuff going on out here. It's hard. I'm struggling with the fact that we're already 8 months into this year. This year has been a blur. It has been a rough year for everybody. I don't know of anyone who has not dealt with something or another. I unfortunately have lost a family member to this coronavirus. I've had several friends who have been ill. I am fortunate thus far. I hope that a lot of you remain fortunate. I wish that I could say that each and every person from here forward could live through this thing. I wish that we all could. I don't know what tomorrow holds for me. I've been locked in this house. I get out every now and then, but you know, we're safe when we go out, and we want to remain that way. And we don't need to listen to people who do not have the education or knowledge of what's going on in the world to try and tell us what we need to be doing. Because like everything else, you want to live to tell the story, and tomorrow's another day. So, ladies and gentlemen, we got the scam part out the way. I want to let y'all know about my man and his madness. We talked about the Mulford Act. We talked about the lynching in 1981. and the NRA and the lawsuit that's pending. So, as this thing plays out, figure out what direction you're going to go in and go in that direction. Do not be disturbed. Do not be deterred. Don't let nobody turn you around, and do what you got to do. We all know what we need. Each and every one of us know what we need for ourselves. So let's work on that and do what we got to do, y'all. So it's my time. I appreciate each and every one of you. Oh, you know what? Right quick before I go, I'm always forgetting stuff. I got to stop doing that. I want to let y'all know about, y'all see my beautiful skin, right? This is Froth Naturals. This is what I use. This is a whipped shea butter. It's a fantastic product. I can't say enough good things about it. Check my girl out, frothnaturals.com, or you can hit her on Instagram at frothnaturals. Check out her product line. I love all of her stuff. It is fantastic. I'm wearing it right now. Y'all see my beautiful skin. You know what it is. Y'all know what it is, baby. Let me see. And also, I don't want you to forget my girl Tara over there with Royalty LLC. Fantastic product, man. I can't say enough good things about this in particular. As much as I like all of her teas, the marigold tea, that's what I got a picture of on there right now. That marigold tea is the bomb. Now, it ain't the best tasting. It's a little bitter, and I don't use sugar. But if you mix it with the mint tea and some of the other stuff, man, look, great for inflammation. Now, just keep in mind, I am not no doctor. I'm not making any claims of what it'll do for you and save your life and all that. That ain't my thing. But I can tell you what it's done over here, and it works wonders. It is a great product. Y'all ought to check her out. Royalty LLC. Good stuff, man. Good stuff, man. All right. So, with all of that said, I want everybody to stay safe. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your people. Tell somebody you love them. And I'm gonna go down here and eat my dinner. So y'all have yourselves a wonderful evening. Love, peace, and chicken grease. We out, y'all.
Door number 2 or door number 3.
Oh, wow. Oh, all right, okay, all right. No, wait, okay, wait, okay. All right, no, wait. Oh, wait, Monty. Door number 1, 3, 2, 8. No, wait, hold on.